All right, hi everyone, my name is Will, and I will be doing partition a presentation on the partition of India and talk about the escalation of religious tensions that became like a clash over some of the sacred land that was India. And I recently learned about this just because this year is the 75th anniversary of the partition, and so I saw a little bit of news coverage about this museum that was giving a 3D virtual tour of the exhibit they opened up for it. And you can actually access it if you go to the link right there, or I guess if you just type it in, you'll be able to find it. It has some cool history in each of the exhibits. And for the background on the partition, it started in the 20s with a lot of the protests you might be familiar with from world history. This was the movements that Gandhi started, and it was protesting British rule over India and its ineffectiveness. And it led into 1933 with the Pakistan Declaration, which is a call for just an all-Muslim country rather than the secular unified India that was before then. And in 1942, it led to the Quit India Resolution, which was a move, or like a diplomatic move by Congress to quit the British rule. And that didn't really come about until July 18th of 47 with the India Independence Act, which declared a British withdrawal over the course of the next couple months and divided India up into an eastern and western Pakistan region and mainland India. But that specifically didn't happen until August 15th of 47 with the partition, which is what we're talking about today. And it was a devastating religious conflict as Hindi peoples fled from where they were in those newly created regions to get to mainland India, and the Muslim population fled from India to get to Pakistan and were attacked by neighbors, community members, just everyone. It was a very bloody massacre, anywhere between 200,000 to 2 million lives lost. Yeah, that official number just can't be counted with all the different small towns and communities where this tragedy happened. And some things we can recognize for sure, sacred land. Of course, when you have a country dividing, there's going to be conflicts over land. And the All India Muslim League thought that unification would be impossible. They wanted to practice their own religion in their own space. Um, and according to kind of the absolute truth of their religion, they thought that when their religion wasn't recognized as its independent in the secular India, that they were going to need to separate into a Islamic backbone government. And that's what Pakistan became. And we also see religious fundamentalism play in here with the All India Muslim League seeing the presence of Hinduism just in general in India as invasive and oppressive. And it goes against the values of their religion and the sacred text they hold. And some similarities we see with other movements involving land in the religious violence. We see Jerusalem, how it's divided into four quarters, and how there are these different religions that occupy different spaces of it, but still have border clashes, tensions that frequently spill over. And this is what we're seeing in India and Pakistan too. The borders were pretty hastily drawn, and there are still clashes to this day that are being arbitrated. But in terms of what makes this conflict unique, it is massive in scale and intensity. Like I mentioned, up to 2 million people had died in this, but even more were affected just by having to move and resettle. And we also see that this movement is spurred by political motivations, which is different from most. There was an actual government decision to cause this to happen. And there was also the lack of government foresight that allowed this to happen without protections. And then we see in the resolution too, it's a migration. It's an uprooting of culture and community, which is kind of different from some of the other land-focused agreements where it's people trying to claim something for full control. Here, people were trying to leave, people were trying to get out, or at least isolate themselves into a safe space. And it being the 75th anniversary year of this tragedy, there were lots of news coverage on both sides with the Pakistani news and Indian news. And there's a current consensus that the ceasefire they have at the border will hold, which is good. It's helped ease tensions. but there's still the mistrust and hostility that exists, as you would expect at a border. And this is also fueled by India taking a more Western view on most things, as opposed to Pakistan, who kind of shoulders more with Afghanistan and Iran, and have the world looking at them through an Islamic lens that isn't always kind to those Islamic countries, despite them being peaceful in nature. And then we also see in Pakistani and Indian authorities in their statements, they do think the ceasefire will hold, and they think that it's helped to resolve a lot of the issues diplomatically, which is a good outlook for the future of border control and safety, as well as preventing clashes and violence there. I have a few sources here, but other than that, thank you for listening.